Hampton Sides is best known for his gripping nonfiction adventure stories. In addition to gripping, it's been called riveting, swashbuckling, all kinds of adjectives known for adventuresome stories. And they're set in war or depicting epic expeditions of discovery and exploration. He's an acclaimed journalist and the author of the best-selling histories Ghost Soldiers, Blood and Thunder, Hellhound on His Trail, In the Kingdom of Ice, On Desperate Ground, which he came to Wichita to promote several years ago at the Assistance League Day of Authors, and most recently, The Wide, Wide Sea. This is an epic account of a momentous voyage of the age of exploration, which culminated in Captain James Cook's death in Hawaii. It left a complex, controversial legacy, and it's still debated today. Cook's death in Hawaii left a complex, on July 12, 1776, Captain James Cook, already lionized as the greatest explorer in British history, set off on his third voyage in his ship, the HMS Resolution. 2.5 years later, on a beach on the island of Hawaii, Cook was killed in a conflict with native Hawaiians. How did Cook, who was unique among captains for his respect for indigenous people and cultures, come to this fateful moment? This is the story that Hampton tells. And I quote from the New York Times, he isn't just interested in retelling an adventure tale. He also wants to present it from a 21st century point of view. The Wide, Wide Sea fits neatly into a growing genre that includes, and he rounds out this trifecta, David Gran and Candace Millard. These are stories of famous expeditions once told as swashbuckling stories of adventure, but they're recast within a tragic history of colonialism. Sides weaves in oral histories to show how Hawaiians and other indigenous groups perceived Cook, and strives to bring to life ancient Polynesian cultures just as much as Imperial England. Please, let's give a warm welcome to Hampton Sides.
Thank you. It is really great to be back here in lovely Wichita, one place that Captain Cook did not get to. I don't think he made it this far inland anywhere. Thank you also for your patience and forbearance. It took us a little while to sort out some technical stuff. Because I'm not only going to talk about Captain Cook, but I'm going to show a lot of images, both of his voyage and my voyages in his wake, in pursuit of the story. Because I kind of went all over the planet on this one. More travel than all my other books combined. And traveled over some really, as you're going to see, some really nice places like Tahiti and New Zealand and Hawaii and Alaska and so forth. Okay. My clicker isn't working either, so I have a human clicker. Thank you. So Captain Cook, very well known in Australia. He's very well known in New Zealand. He's very well known in England and parts of Canada. Not as well known in the United States, I've found, as I've been on this book tour. He's often mixed up with other captains, some real, some imaginary. So this is the real Captain Cook. The best image we have of him, a portrait that was painted in 1776, just as the American Revolution was getting started, and just as he was about to go on his third and final voyage. I'm going to leave it there for a second. And he was, what I love about this painting, well, a couple of things. First is it promptly was lost to history and was gone from history for 200 years. And it was found in somebody's estate in Ireland. We have him without a wig, we have him not posing. We see his intensity, we see his mean, this is a very, very intense, very meticulous map maker, a puzzle solver, a problem solver, and someone that, you know, was often alone working on these problems, whatever they may have been. First and foremost, he was a great cartographer. Probably not the kind of guy you'd want to hang out and have a beer with. A very, very intimidating presence, and someone who inspired a lot of loyalty among his men, but also his men, I think, lived somewhat in fear of him, as it was true of so many British captains of his time. Okay, so other captains that he gets mixed up with, and while I've been on book tour, people have thought I was writing about all sorts of other people besides Captain Cook, like Captain Kidd, this guy, a privateer, and of course Captain Kirk, from the Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise is widely believed to have been directly patterned after Captain James Cook of the Endeavour, and there are similarities that you can get into if you want to nerd out and get into the Star Trek stuff. But he's also mixed up with this guy, Captain Hook. and this is something, I mean, I can't tell you how many people, while I've been working on this book for the last 5 years, have asked me, how's the book on the captain, how's the book on the pirate coming along? The guy with the parrot and the guy from Peter Pan. And then, of course, the greatest captain of all, I think we can all agree, Captain Crunch. Okay. So this is like the official Admiralty painting of Cook that you will often see with the wig and all the accoutrements of exploration, and by the time he's getting ready for his third voyage, which is the subject of my book, he is a household name in England. He's famous. He's meeting with the King of England. He's meeting with all these scientists and intellectuals. Everyone knows him all over Europe. And he could have retired. After his first 2 expeditions, he would have been in the pantheon of the greatest explorers of all time. But as you'll see, he gets persuaded to go out one third time, which, as we all know, we know now because Sarah told us the end of the book. He dies. Spoiler. No, I think actually the one thing Americans know about Captain Cook, if they know anything, it is that he died a very violent and very spectacularly dramatic death on the big island of Hawaii. So we'll get to that in a bit. So people ask me, where did Captain Cook go? And the question is almost like, where didn't he go? These are the 3 voyages around the world. The blue line is the trajectory of his final voyage, which is the subject of the book. But he went all these places and mapped so well and broadcast sort of the exact locations of all of these places, continents and islands, archipelagos all over the Pacific, that people all over the Pacific today somewhat resent him. You can hit the next one. He's been canceled all over the Pacific, hacked from his plinth and splattered with paint. And First Nations people, Indigenous people especially, and Aboriginal people in Australia view him as a symbol of colonialism, even though he was primarily, almost exclusively, an explorer. He set in motion with these voyages the process of imperialism that unraveled these societies pretty quickly. So I was working on this book, researching it as all this stuff was happening, and it somewhat irritated me because I had grown to really admire Captain Cook and his accomplishments. But I also decided it was good. It was good for the book in a way, because you got this 250-year-old stodgy, bewigged man who is from the depths of history, who is suddenly popular again and controversial again and in the news. So I lean into that controversy throughout the book. Okay. This is the place where Captain Cook was killed, on the Big Island. This is what it looked like the day I visited. So you get the depth of feeling there. In this case, Native American, Native Hawaiians just want these things to go away. They just basically, there's a very strong sovereignty movement in Hawaii. They don't really want the U.S. there. They didn't want England there, but there you go. So people ask me, okay, so Captain Cook, why should I know about him? What did he do? What were his accomplishments? And I kind of raced through a series of his first things that his expeditions either cited or described or encountered. So let's go through them. So his voyages were the first to make use of this amazing navigational tool called the chronometer, which enabled sailors finally to know where they were in the world, specifically longitude. I won't go into all the history of this little device. It was kind of like the iPod of its day. It told the exact time in Greenwich, England, wherever you were in the world. And by knowing the time in Greenwich, England, they could figure out the longitude. It's very complicated to describe it. But so he made use of this tool and would enable him to make these incredibly accurate maps and enable him to know where he was precisely in the world throughout this entire voyage. So that's one of the things that is a first for him. You can see that chronometer, which is called the K1, and a lot of other chronometers at the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, which is the greatest maritime museum in the world. Any of you been there? One. You gotta get over there. It's an extraordinary thing with a lot of Cook's relics and artwork and cultural artifacts and scientific instruments, all housed in this one place. Okay. So Captain Cook is thought to be the first explorer, certainly the first European explorer to cross the Antarctic Circle. He was also the first explorer to cross both the Antarctic Circle and the Arctic Circle. He was looking for, you can click again, this gigantic continent that was widely presumed to be down at the bottom of the world. A lot of scientists back then thought the preponderance of land masses in the northern hemisphere made it so that there had to be, this is what the scientists said, there had to be this great supercontinent down below, or otherwise the planet would be top heavy and it would just wobble out into outer space. And he went down there and just determined that it wasn't there. He certainly anticipated Antarctica. He got very close to it, almost 100 miles away. He saw the kind of first signs of Antarctica. He certainly mapped the entire east coast of Australia and circumnavigated with the North and South Island of New Zealand, but none of that compared to what this continent was supposed to be. It was supposed to be this massive thing larger than Eurasia. So he smashed that theory. Okay. So scurvy. We have to talk a little bit about scurvy. It's a fun topic, a nautical topic. Captain Cook's voyages, all three of them, were among the very first, if not the first, where not a single man, I'm talking long distance voyages, not a single man died of scurvy. He seemed to have figured out something about this horrible disease, which was considered by this point kind of like an occupational hazard of long distance voyaging that was widely tolerated by the European navies. As many as half of the sailors on a typical voyage would die. And it's caused by a deficiency of vitamin C. But it's a horrible, horrible way to go. Your gums recede and you get this horrible breath, and then your body starts little by little disintegrating within itself, and you see your body turns to mush. And Cook seemed to figure out, although he didn't understand vitamin C, he understood that it had to do with diet, and that he required his men, often against their will, to eat their vegetables and fruit and eat fresh meat and get away from that diet of salt pork and hardtack biscuits. And even though sailors are very much creatures of habit and routine, he just basically forced them to eat this other diet, and it saved their lives. So that's another first. You can go again. So Captain Cook's voyages were the first to describe, because they get to Hawaii, the sport of surfing, and this amazing picture of Captain Cook on a surfboard. No, his officers were unbelievable. They were gobsmacked by surfing. They couldn't believe it because most English officers in the Navy didn't know how to swim, let alone go out and do these huge waves. And I know it's amazing. They weren't required to know how to swim, let alone going out into these huge waves and get on these longboards and glide their way to the beach. While in Hawaii, we also get our first description of the hula dance. We get our first description of all kinds of species and of both plants and animals. So there's that. We get our first use of the word taboo in Cook's first and second voyage, especially, and the concept enters the English language and the English lexicon very quickly, and the idea of this whole system of laws of things you can and can't do that permeates most of Polynesian society. What else? The first description of lomi lomi, which is Polynesian massage. Captain Cook himself, a very uptight, calcified, tough, mariner. He didn't want to undergo a massage. He's British. He didn't want to be touched. But he was suffering mightily from this condition called sciatica, an acute pinch. Any of you have had that? It looks like you have. He was very skeptical of this whole thing, but he underwent 3 treatments, and he was completely cured, completely healed from this. That enters the description of Polynesian massage, was still a very big thing. We get our first description of a human sacrifice on Tahiti, something that was widely thought to exist, but no one had actually watched one of these things. And this is Cook. I mean, he thinks it's terrible, but he also feels like it's his job to document what these people do and how they do it. So he's like playing the role of an anthropologist. In New Zealand, we get our first description of all kinds of things, like the haka dance, the crazy dance that is a war dance of the Maori. Also, tattooing. Captain Cook's own men, when they're in New Zealand and elsewhere in Polynesia, they're fascinated by these intricate designs of tattooing. They get tattoos themselves, and when they get back to England, it becomes a thing. It goes viral. It's like everybody wants a tattoo, especially sailors, and that's where the whole thing started. Is to this day, it's something you got to do if you're a sailor. You got to get a tattoo, or 3 or 4 or 5. A little bit of Hep C along the way. This book, because it's set 250 years ago, and it involves an enormous amount of reading and sort of solitary work. It's kind of lonely at times, but thank God there are scholars all over the Pacific, all over the world, who have devoted themselves to the age of exploration and this period in maritime history, and specifically Captain Cook. So a little shout out to them. First, I had to join, I had to get one of these things. I'm a card-carrying member of the Captain Cook Society, and invite you to join it as well. They call themselves Cookies. They're spread all over the place, and most of them, an astonishing number of them, have excellent facial hair. They are, they're mostly men, but they're women as well, and people of all different fields: anthropologists, archaeologists, maritime historians, just amateur historians, Polynesians who are directly connected to the story. So just a shout out to these people. I could not have done this book without them, because otherwise it would have taken me forever. I think it would have taken forever to sort of absorb the voluminous amount of of primary literature that's out there and sort of getting all your facts right, because this is very complicated stuff. There's also a lot of collectors of Cook memorabilia, relics, some of which is questionable. Some of it is, it does have a good provenance and I think it's accurate, including this barbed spear from Captain Cook's third voyage that I was able to hold. And you know, there's something very cool about holding history in your hand. It makes it come alive in ways that just sitting in front of your computer looking at documents will not. Also, the book collectors. There are a lot of, so all three of Cook's voyages produced enormous bodies of literature, including the official, you know, multi-volume, folio-sized accounts, Cook's journals, with lots of engravings and maps and charts and really detailed stuff that was printed in, printed in the 1700s, 1780s. And when you hold these books in your hand and sort of the dust rises up from the page, it's just so cool. It just makes it come alive. So I went to Yorkshire to try to understand a little bit about Captain Cook himself. This book is a narrative about a voyage. It's not a biography of Captain Cook per se, but he is the protagonist of the story. So he grew up in relative poverty. He was the son of a farmer in this town called Eton in the moors of Yorkshire, and that would have been his life, really. He, I think, as a young man, was prepared to become a farmer just like his dad. He had no money, and this is unusual for officers of his day in the Navy. Most of them came up from some kind of wealth or connections. He had none of that, but he was fascinated with the ocean at an early age. He climbed this, it's either the world's tallest hill or the world's shortest mountain, but it's called Roseberry Topping in the moors. I climbed to the top of this, and so did I, because the legend has it, and I think it's there's some at least kernel of truth to it, that this is the, one more, yeah, there we go. When he was 7 years old, he climbed to the top of that, and for the very first time, he saw the ocean. And he immediately viewed that as his escape hatch. It's like, I don't have to be a farmer. I want to go there. And he did go there. And he went to this town on the North Sea called Whitby, where he joined the Merchant Marine, studied under some Quaker shipping concerns there, and learned to pilot these ships that were called Whitby Cats. And these were ships that were really designed to haul coal from Newcastle to London. And they're not beautiful exactly. They're boxy and square and stout and sturdy, but they aren't sleek or fast or elegant. But these are the ships he learned to sail and greatly admired their abilities. They have a very shallow draft. They can store tons and tons of stuff, and they never seem to capsize. As he went all over the Baltic in these ships. And when he became an explorer, he decided these were the ships that he wanted to sail around the world in, the Whitby Cats. And so all of his vessels, the Endeavour, the Discovery, the Adventure, and the Resolution were all Whitby Cats. Okay. So this third voyage, this final voyage, is really designed to find something that was an obsession of European explorers, but particularly the British, and had been for a long time. And that was the Northwest Passage, a shortcut over the top of Canada, connecting the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. So many voyages had tried it and ended up like this, stuck in the ice, suffering from scurvy, eating shoe leather, suffering, dying for this grail that no one seemed to be able to find their way through those labyrinthine, that geography of northern Canada. So the voyage, this voyage, Captain Cook's third voyage, was designed to kind of look for that same Northwest Passage, but go around to the other side of the world, to Alaska, a part of the world that was not understood at all.